And you know what we finally learn even in the New Testament about Moses? Is that the Bible later in the New Testament says that Moses was a man mighty in words and deeds. So God helped him over time to overcome his lack of ability in being able to communicate. And Moses became mighty in words and deeds. God was able to use him. But it's because God built his faith over time. And he took somebody who didn't have all of the luxuries of life, and he put his glory on him. And he says, I'm going to take somebody with a negative background who's made mistakes and who didn't even know me, who grew up not knowing me. And I'm going to do some things in their life where people, when they see what I enable them to do, what I empower them to do, they're going to know that this was not just the work of a man or a woman, but this was the grace of God. And God says, I'm going to do it. I'm going to take the least likely person. Not many wise, not many noble are called. God says, I'm going to take the base thing, the rejected thing, the abused thing. I'm going to take the rebellious thing, and I'm going to put my glory on it. And people are going to realize that this is nothing but the hand of God, because they couldn't do this in their own strength. And so God says, I'm going to be glorified, and I'm going to use the person that is the most least likely to be used, so that no flesh can glory in my presence. And then nobody will say that they've just done this because this is the result of the great education that they have had. No, no, no. When you're able to speak by the Spirit of God and let something come from the heart of God, and when you articulate a God thought and the deliverance power of God flows, I don't care if you went to Harvard or Oxford, England, you won't be able to be trained how to minister by the Spirit by a human being. This is the work of God. When God prophetically does something, when God graces you to be able to build something in your life and you realize, I didn't even know what I was doing. I stumbled into this. I shouldn't have been qualified for where I am. This was the work of God. How, if they had ever asked me did I ever see or know that God would trust me with this, or that he would give that to me? And if we'd ever be honest with ourselves, the answer would be no. I never knew that I could do it. And the only reason that God would take those of us in that position is that so that no flesh would glory in his presence. I cannot tell you how shy and introverted I grew up as a child, and even when I'm around people today, when I'm not in the pulpit and not standing in the office of the bishop, I'm still that quiet, shy, introverted person. I'll sit next to a person on a plane and barely say two words unless God is just pressing me. He has to really be riding on me, because I so identify with Moses. That's not my natural nature. What I do, I'm out of my comfort zone doing what I do with people. I wanted to be a CPA so that I could just deal with numbers and not have to deal with people. And God had another plan. It's amazing that he would take somebody quiet and shy instead of this gregarious extrovert. And he uses extroverts too, but he uses introverts as well. And he uses highly skilled people, and he uses people with no skill at all. And he uses rich people, and he uses poor people, and he uses educated people, and he uses the unlearned. He's God. And why would God use somebody that doesn't have all of the credentials, and somebody whose credit score is jacked up, and somebody who might have a rap sheet because you've spent a few nights in jail? Why would God do that? So that no flesh would glory in his presence. I sat at dinner last night in Dallas. The man that was a professional football player. And he was so mean in his younger years. His dad was in prison And he never met his dad until he was 10 years old, and his dad came home from prison. And the little 10-year-old boy ran out to meet his dad. And his dad walked up to him on the porch and punched him in the face and said, "I dare you to cry." He says, "Because men don't cry." And he began to form the seeds of a hardened man. And that same man that I had dinner with last night murdered 5 people. And God brought his glory on him, got him out, and he's now reaching men for Jesus Christ all over the world. He's still a big tough guy. Somebody hollered at his wife and came on to her. She came in the house and told her husband. He went out to settle the issue. 3 guys. And he said, "Did one of you all say something to my wife?" And these were grown men. These were not teenagers. These were 3 grown men. And he said, yeah, I said something. He pulled a pipe out and hit the guy that I had dinner with. It's probably the last time he'll hit anybody else. Because he hit one of the guys so hard that he knocked that guy out, and his body hit the other guy and knocked him out. And when the guy who had the pipe saw all of that, he took off running. He sent 2 of them to the hospital. And God put his transcendent glory on him. Put his glory on him. And he's going in prisons now, sharing his story about the grace of God and what God did in his own life. I'm just telling you, you can't get so low and do things so awful that you're out of the reach of God for his glory to be able to give you a testimony for the glory of God. It's amazing. I spoke out in Phoenix, Arizona earlier this year. And here was a lady, beautiful woman, her husband. She went out and committed adultery on him. Got pregnant with another man's child of another race. And God told her husband, "I want you to stay with your wife and raise the child." The child is about 10 or 11 years old now. He's doing it. You don't do that in your flesh. That's a testimony of the love of Jesus Christ, the forgiveness that comes, that washes us. I'm just telling us, there's a story that God has in your life that has his glory written all over it. And you got to tell that story. In this next dimension, you may not feel qualified. You might feel inadequate in so many areas. You might feel intimidated. And if it doesn't intimidate you, it's not God. It ought to intimidate you. Because if it doesn't intimidate you, you won't feel the need for faith. And you're going to need faith for where God is taking you. Get ready for the journey of a lifetime. It's going to be good.